Buonasera! T. Walker here. Walker Wine Session 15. Milestone. We have got for you today a lovely little white wine. I feel like it's been a while since we've done a white wine. It is called Cotes. This really cool label. 2020 vintage Cotes is the wine. The winery is Liege or Sans Liege, S-A-N-S-L-I-E-G-E, 2 words, Sans Liege. And the Cotes wine for them is this fantastic white Rhone blend. This one comes from the Central Coast in California, so about 2+ hours south of San Francisco. And the varietal breakdown on this is 45 Viognier, 33 Marsanne, 13 Roussanne, 6 Grenache Blanc, 3% Clairette. Sans Liege is a fantastic, pretty small, but small, medium, good, actually probably a small to medium sized winery in the Paso Robles area, and makes, for the most part, Rhone wine varietal or blends. So a lot of Syrah, Grenache on the red side, and on the whites, we've got these varietals: Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne, Grenache Blanc. He does a fantastic job. Kurt Shacklin's the winemaker, and I highly recommend checking out all of their wines. They are a great value, good bang for your buck. This one is in the kind of mid to upper 20s, I believe, around 25 or so. It could be 28 now, I'm not sure. But this wine specifically, I've had it for a long time over the years, and it's always very consistent. And the breakdown on this wine, as far as how it's made, is that usually part of it goes through malolactic fermentation, and then part of it does not go through malolactic fermentation. Part of it goes into barrel. So the part that goes through malolactic fermentation goes into barrel and ferments and or ages in the barrel. And then the other part that does not go through malolactic fermentation, which is the Grenache Blanc, maybe the Clairette too, that is in stainless steel tank. So, and normally there's a little bit, it kind of depends on the vintage, but 5, 10, 15, 20% new oak of that portion that goes into the barrels. And then some used barrels that don't particularly have much flavor component at that point. So you have this wonderful balance, all in all, kind of getting to the end texture of the wine, the end approach of this wine, that there's this great balance of creaminess, but also still a brightness to it, and enough cleanliness to it to where it's fresh on the palate. But I've always found it to be a wonderful wine that really is highly, it's very Moorish, it's just very highly drinkable, and I would say Chardonnay drinkers would love this, as well as many other white wine drinkers. I think it hits a lot of palates. It's usually fairly intense. Viognier is a variety that has a lot of a floral bouquet, floral aromas to it, and also a little bit of like phenolic, a little bit of like just a touch of bitterness, just a touch. And I actually find it kind of refreshing and intriguing. But it is a fairly intense wine, and with that, I would say, I mean, certainly you could consume a glass just on your porch on its own without food, but I would say this is wonderful with food too. So I opened this last night, had a very small glass as I was wanting some wine with the food I had, but I definitely wanted to get this wine on tape and to share it with y'all. So definitely some like orange and peach fruits there, kind of stone fruits, and some of those kind of odd, and I shouldn't say odd, but atypical fruits that not a lot of us have all the time. I know in Italy, when I worked over there, there was a fruit called kaki, I don't know if it was C-A-C-H-I or K-A-K-I, either or, pronounced kaki fruit. And it's this really orange fruit that was pretty sweet, but it kind of has this interesting, exotic orange fruit to it. There's a touch of vanilla for sure, kind of undertone and undercurrent of this wine, kind of giving it a foundation, if you will. It's kind of interesting. I almost smell, I don't think I've ever said this before, I almost kind of smell some bergamot, which the only reason I really know what bergamot smells like is because I know what bergamot and Earl Grey tea smells like. So that's pretty interesting. Whoops. There's also a nice mineral component, maybe a little bit of like a zesty lime, I would say, more so than lemon, but let's give it a taste. More of those citrus fruits, very creamy but not weighty, but definitely creamy, medium plus bodied wine, very silky, kind of just caresses your mouth. It's very easy on your palate, in the sense of it almost like massages your mouth or something along these lines. The texture is just very silky and creamy, but in a refreshing kind of way, not in a weighty way. There's definitely the floral aspect of Viognier there, the little touch of bitterness. I feel like there's still, there's kind of the Liege component a little bit, which kind of adds that a little bit of a yeasty mineral component to me. Kind of peach fuzzy. Kind of like the outside of a peach, you know, before it's super duper ripe, but you can tell it's a peach, but like the peaches we get at the stores these days. Yeah, some really kind of, I would say, exotic flavors. So the technical notes I couldn't find on this specific vintage on their website, which is fantastic. They have all the vintages going back, I think, to like 2010, and then they had the current vintage, the current release 2021. This is the 2020, and for some reason I think I got lost in the shuffle between all the older ones and then uploading the new one when they, uploaded the new one and they didn't add the 2020 to the archived of tasting notes. So I don't have the specific specs on this one other than the grape varietals, which are on the label here, which is great. That they just put that on the label. Fresh, juicy, just a lovely caressing wine. Kind of medium finish. With that little bit of the oak, the kind of the vanilla profile, kind of lemon lime. Yeah, it's just very piacevole, very pleasing wine to drink. I mean, for me, this is a white wine that you could pour for anybody, like I was saying. So a go-to kind of gift to bring to somebody's house. This style of wine goes over very well. Maybe let's talk about malolactic fermentation a bit. Some of you that are watching know what that is, and some of you may not. So we talked earlier about some of the grapes here, the Viognier and probably the Marsanne and Roussanne. They all go into barrel at some point after fermentation or possibly during fermentation. And what a winemaker has at his or her disposal is to allow a wine to go through what malolactic fermentation or malolactic conversion, as it's more so a conversion than a fermentation, but it's where the malic acid is converted into lactic acid. And the malic acid is acid, if you can think of it like, you know, biting into a Granny Smith apple, that kind of tart acidity. And then the lactic acid is acid that you would find in milk, that soft, creamy acid component. And so what Kurt has done with this wine is, I think, done a wonderful job at taking a portion of it, probably 2/3 or more, and allowing it to go through malolactic fermentation to have that richness, to have that texture, that soft acid, and then he adds in just enough of that Grenache Blanc to keep it bright and fresh and lively on your palate. And I think it's a fantastic job of creating this wine with the different acid profiles that he has at his disposal. So that's a wonderful winemaking technique that he's employed, and I really appreciate it because I do like softer wines, generally speaking. So I like wines that have gone through malolactic conversion. And this wine has done a great job at being kind of the best of both worlds. Let's give it a final taste before we wrap up. I'm going to keep this video a little shorter today, but this wine's fantastic. 31 barrels made, so you know, times about 25 cases. What is that? 36? Yeah, 700-800 cases. So not a tiny production. And if you have his wines too, he's got some great little anecdotes about these wines. They're almost like, all of these wines, the specific SKUs or bottlings themselves are all almost like a caricature, if you will. He's got these little mini stories on there. I'm not going to read it for you today, but if you buy his wines, you will find out that all of them come with a story. A little pineapple there, just a smorgasbord of tropical fruits, citrus fruits. I'm just gonna say like Asian fruits that I don't even know what they are and taste like. All that fruit, but it's not overdone. You've got the little bit of floral action coming on from the Viognier. You have just a touch, the tiniest bit of bitterness that's actually really nice. I think it keeps the wine kind of gives it some backbone to this wine, which is rich. It would get goopy maybe without that kind of bitterness and without the acidity from the Grenache Blanc, that malic acid still retaining there. So fantastic job. And Paso Robles and the Central Coast AVA of California, one of my favorite AVAs in the country. Just, you know, there's so many different microclimates. A lot of it is quite warm, but around the coast, you've got these just phenomenal pockets of vineyards that are true microclimates. And Kurt makes a slew of other wines, red and white. He does a Grenache Blanc Roussanne that's fantastic, also done in this kind of style, the rounder, richer style. Then he does multiple single varietal whites, and he does a single varietal Marsanne that's very fun and delicious. So I'm a huge fan of Paso Robles, huge fan of Liege, this winery, and and this style. So hopefully today you've taken a little bit home with you, whether it's something about malolactic conversion, and mixing the two, something that's gone through malo and something that hasn't. And just to explore a new winery out there and these blends. And no doubt that blends are becoming more popular in the US for sure, hitting the market. And so I'm delighted to try this, and I'm gonna have it with some food. So thank you for joining me, and I will be back with y'all soon. Buona serata. Ciao, ciao.